Thanks for joining me for another episode of Fancy Cooking with Nancy, and today we'll be making a jerk chicken Hawaiian pizza. And we'll start by making the dough. So for the dough, we're using 4.5 cups flour, 1 2/3 cup milk, 1 tablespoon yeast, 1 tablespoon granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon salt, 4 tablespoon butter, and an egg. So I'm gonna start by adding my milk to a saucepan and making it just warm to the touch, not hot. Do not bring to a boil. And then I'm gonna add that to a bowl, and I'm also gonna add my yeast and my brown sugar and my milk, my butter, sorry. Mix that all together and get ready to add the flour. And I add the salt from earlier, so make sure that's in there as well. Add your flour 1 cup at a time and be sure to mix that in properly before you add the next cup. So here I'm using a wooden spoon because I don't have a mixer, so I'm using my hand. And once the dough gets less wet, it will become harder to turn, so you need something sturdy to use. So be sure to use a wooden spoon or a very firm plastic spoon to mix this dough together. So I'm adding all my flour, and as you can see, it's still a bit wet. So I'm going to add about half cup more to it, and be sure not to add over 5 cups of flour, not to use over 5 cups of flour for this recipe, because you don't want your dough to be dry. You don't want the bread to be dry. So that looks good. Turn it a little bit, and then we're gonna oil a bowl so that we can set this aside for it to rise until it's double its size. You can then cover this with a damp cloth and set it aside. So with some nice plumpy tomatoes, we're gonna cut off the tips of these, and we're gonna set some water to boil as well. Then we're gonna drop these in for about 3 minutes, and then we're gonna remove them, set them aside for a little bit, and then we're gonna proceed to peeling the skin off of it. Use a knife to create a little point of entry there and just remove the skin. It comes off pretty easily, but the tomato is a bit hot, so you can wait until it's cool a bit, but you shouldn't wait until it's completely cool. So we're gonna mince some garlic and some onion to make our tomato sauce. So once the tomatoes are cool, we're gonna dice them into chunks and get the other ingredients ready to make the sauce. So now we're gonna move on to cooking the sauce. So we're gonna set a pot to preheat, and we're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter to it. I'm also gonna add a splash of oil just to help stop the butter from burning, and I'm gonna add the garlic and the onion as well. So then I'm gonna add my chopped tomatoes, and I'm gonna saute this until it starts to release its juices. Then I'm gonna add about half a cup of water to this as well, and just leave it for a bit. So I'm using Hunt's tomato paste and Hunt's tomato sauce, the small cans, and I'm gonna pop those open and add them to my sauce. So I'm adding the whole can of tomato sauce, and I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste and mix that in completely. Once that's mixed, I'm gonna add about another half cup of water, and I'm gonna add about 5 shakes of oregano, dried oregano, and 2 bay leaves. I also added about 2 teaspoons of brown sugar and a teaspoon of salt. Then I'm gonna add the juice from my canned pineapples, and I'm gonna just reduce all of this until it becomes this nice chunky sauce. So for the topping, I will julienne this onion, half of an onion, and a whole jalapeno, and half of a sweet pepper. Forgot to sharpen my knife this day. So using a 10.75 ounce canned pineapple, I will be cutting these into some chunks. So now I'm gonna start prepping the chicken breast, and I'm gonna start by preheating some oil, and hope you like my little cute bottle that I recycled. And I have the chicken breast here that I'm gonna sear on both sides. No, I'm not planning to cook this chicken thoroughly because it's gonna cook again in the oven, so I want it to be a little rare in the middle, just because I don't want my chicken to be dry once it's cooked in the oven again. So your dough should look like this. It should double its size after about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So we're gonna turn it over a little bit, and then we're gonna cut it in half. We're gonna save half for another recipe that I have on my website and my YouTube channel that you can check out after this one, up here in the little I section up there. Thank you. Please follow me. Subscribe. So I oiled my pan, and I add some cornmeal to it as well, just to help with the sticking and also add another layer of crunch. And so I'm gonna stretch my dough before I put it onto the pan, leaving the middle thin and the outer layers a bit thick, and then I'm gonna stretch and push it all the way to the sides until my pan is completely covered. And I'm just gonna pinch all those little tiny holes to ensure that there's no holes throughout it. So adding my sauce, I'm gonna swoosh this all over and ensure you get your sauce everywhere. Cover all your dough. So guys, my phone was acting up and I lost the video of me putting all the toppings on here. So, but you know the drill, just put all the toppings you previously made over this bad boy, set it to bake. Before you put your cheese on there, for about 15 to 20 minutes, you lift the dough and ensure that the bottom of the dough is crispy and brown. And then we're gonna add the cheese and set it back in the oven for about 7 to 10 minutes until the cheese is melted and delicious. But before, I'm also gonna add some whole basil leaves just to add another layer of deliciousness and freshness. Finished product. So I'm gonna use a knife to just release the cheeses or anything that stick to the edge of the pan, and I'm gonna slide it out onto a flat surface so that I can cut it pretty easily. And even though it's a square pan, it can still give you those delicious triangle slices that we all know and love from a traditional pizza. So go ahead and enjoy. Thank you so very much for watching, and please do let me know if you tried this. Follow me on Instagram and let me know if you enjoy. Thank you for watching. Bye.